Welcome to the Reconnection Club podcast, the show that helps parents heal troubled relationships with their adult sons and daughters. I'm your host, psychotherapist Tina Gilbertson. Each week, I'll offer you compassion, clarity, and personal development tips designed to help you reconnect, not only with your child, but with yourself. Now let's get started. As the parent of at least one child who's reached the age of majority, you yourself are an experienced adult. You've been all grown up for enough years now to be able to make better decisions than, say, the average 19-year-old. We can joke about it, but I'm guessing that overall, the things you think and feel and do today are not exactly the same things you thought and felt and did when you were younger. In the normal course of events, we get smarter about life the older we get. And I should know because I'm 39 and have been for many years. If your child is a new adult, it shouldn't surprise anyone if he thinks quite differently from the way you think about things. That's because he's at a different stage of life. He's still in quite intensive training, learning about both himself and the way the world works. Because your adult child is 19, or 22, or just out of graduate school, or just left home, again, she can't be expected to make the same decisions that an experienced adult at a different stage of life would make. Younger adults, I can say from first-hand experience, do silly things their parents wouldn't do and wouldn't have them do either. But if your child is to mature into a fully realized adult, he needs experience. And none of us grows through having only positive, successful experiences. Growth and maturity require us to face challenges and come out the other side even when things don't go well. We don't grow by avoiding difficulties. If you think back on your own life at some of the crossroads you've had to navigate, what did you go through that, looking back now, helped you to become more mature, more judicious, less impulsive or gullible? Many of the qualities you'd like to instill in your young adult are acquired or developed through experiential learning. If you don't allow your young adult to be young and inexperienced, he may never learn for himself how to be a fully functioning adult. And wouldn't that be worse than making mistakes? Mistakes are unavoidable, but never growing up? That's something most parents don't want to happen to their children. So as hard as it is to sit on your hands while your young adult struggles and makes questionable decisions, always consider the alternative. This is not to say that you should withhold advice if they ask for it, or allow them to risk their lives without comment. Of course you can't be expected to be that hands-off, only that they should be allowed to fail in many instances. As long as they're trying anything, they're moving forward. And they will fail sometimes, hopefully. That's how they'll know to correct their course. That's how they'll learn. You can provide emotional support to help ensure that setbacks don't turn into sand traps for your child. But remember that it's natural to take some time to regroup after a big disappointment, although it is stressful to watch your child flounder after an upset. But pushing young adults in what looks to us older folks like a forward direction is far less effective in many cases than simply holding space for their process. Let me say what I mean by that, holding space for their process, because I realize that's a very therapist-y thing to say. Essentially, what that means is to acknowledge and honor where they are instead of wishing they were somewhere else. It means respecting their right to do life the way they're doing it. Remember a time when you yourself were struggling and you weren't sure what to do, and maybe you didn't feel good about yourself or your situation. But now imagine or remember someone older telling you what you should do. Well, let's say you couldn't quite bring yourself to follow their advice. How does that feel? Now you're both unhappy and you feel inadequate. But imagine someone just reflecting on your experience. Imagine them saying, I see that you're struggling. This is really hard. What do you feel like doing? Or what do you see as your options? How might that feel different if you're struggling? If your young adult says or does something that makes you want to leap in and help them, but they're not actually asking for help, and they're not on fire, remember to give them space to have their own experience. Maybe your child says something like, I should really get a job, but I don't know what I want to do. Then a helpful response from you, believe it or not, might be just, that sounds like a difficult place to be. The more you want someone to move, the more important it is to try to stay with them exactly where they are. Let them be the ones to say, I don't like where I am, I'm getting out of here. People don't move because they're pushed. They start moving when they feel strong enough. And just empathizing with someone is often enough to give them strength to get moving on their own. Obviously, this approach is not natural for parents who invest their love, energy, time, and money into their children and can't help but be interested in the path they're taking. You're not wrong if you want to have a hand in helping your child make his or her way in life. It's the most natural thing in the world. But when your young adult is acting like a young adult, it may be more helpful to them for you to curb those natural instincts. You can help by applying different skills with your child. You might want to learn or practice some of the techniques used by therapists and coaches who talk with people in such a way that they feel heard and understood and also supported to make their own good decisions. If your child is considering doing something dangerous or illegal, I think it's okay to check in with them about that. But everything you say, if you want it to have an impact, must take into account your child's autonomy as an adult. It's so hard to watch them flop around making poor choices, but most mistakes made by young adults are not fatal. They may be humiliating, discouraging, and cause a lot of pain, and even have long-lasting consequences. But there comes a time in your child's life to trust that the values you instilled in childhood will guide her from the inside as she makes her way in the world. Until next time, remember that you are a loving, lovable, and still growing human being. So please take good care of yourself. Bye for now. If you've enjoyed this episode of the Reconnection Club podcast, I invite you to check out reconnectionclub.com. The Reconnection Club is for parents at any stage of estrangement from their adult, child, or children. So whether you've just realized there's trouble between you, you've been living with estrangement for years, or you're newly reconciled but still walking on eggshells, the Reconnection Club is your essential resource for information, support, and continued personal growth. With our courses and workshops, expert interviews, monthly Q&A calls, and a friendly, active community, the Reconnection Club is a wonderful place to be for anyone suffering the pain of estrangement from an adult, child, or children. So check it out at reconnectionclub.com.